We're here to talk about competitive intelligence and how to make it more intelligent. Presenting today will be David Cease. He is the CEO of Northern Light. Northern Light is a consulting firm and company that specializes in machine learning, AI-powered knowledge management solutions. So if you like machine learning, knowledge management, and competitive intelligence, you've come to the right place. With that, I will hand it over to our speaker. David, take it away.
Thank you, Dave. I'm going to try to show the audience some things they've never seen before today. So hopefully I'll live up to that promise. Let me share my screen. And we are talking today about 3 ways to make competitive intelligence intelligent. And just by way of introduction of who Northern Light is, we're located in Boston. We provide knowledge management systems for competitive intelligence. We have 1,000 users of our platform at the world's biggest and best companies that are household names in their industries. And we see tens of thousands of users every day executing competitive intelligence queries and working on competitive intelligence analyses. And this gives us great insight into what works and doesn't work from the viewpoint of CI. So let's talk about the problem first. And the problem is that we live in a Niagara Falls of competitive information. It is pouring in from every direction. It is pouring in from the news. It is pouring in from social media. It is pouring in from industry conferences. It is pouring in from syndicated research. It is pouring in from primary research. And it's truly an impossible situation at first glance to get control of all of that content and to analyze it and extract insights and distribute them. And I think of our CI clients as in this little boat here. And you may feel that way some days with all of this stuff coming at you, and the company expects you to make sense out of it. So the first thing that we would suggest that can really help is the use of smart taxonomies. Smart taxonomies can be the basis for finding and communicating insights from vast amounts of content. The task here is to create relevant taxonomies and criteria for automatic tagging of the incoming content flows. And the tagging has to be smart. It can't just look for text strings. You can't just look for the word Google and tag it as Google, or the word Microsoft and tag it as Microsoft. Because most of the references to those things will not be about actually the company Google or the company Microsoft. Concepts or ideas that we like to use when we're developing taxonomies are, first of all, context-specific entities. So this would be tags that that are industry-specific, that carry meaning or weight or importance in a particular context. So clinical trial. So phase 3 clinical trial would be an example of a context-specific entity. Another idea is meaning-loaded entities. These are concepts that make sense in a business setting, something like strategic partnership. That carries weight to an analyst. If you see something tagged with strategic partnership as a business or competitive intelligence analyst, that has significance to you. So meaning-loaded entities are those that have significance to the business purpose of the analysis. Once you have the taxonomies, deeply tag every document that comes in, tag the full text, hook the resulting database of tag content to analytical tools to help you analyze, filter, group, navigate, and search the results. And then you can use the output of the analytical algorithms and the presentation tools that you have to generate useful displays that can communicate insight to your users. So when we talk about these taxonomies, what do they look like? And they have to be industry and use case specific, and look for concepts, not just for terms. So for example, in the upper left-hand corner here, We have some context-specific taxonomies. One's therapeutic areas there: oncology, infectious diseases, mental disorders. We have clinical trials as context-specific entities. Down below that, we have an example from the information technology industry with cloud computing and data loss prevention and software as a service. In the middle, we have healthcare and health and wellness examples. In the upper right-hand corner, we have a use case specific, not an industry specific, but a use case specific taxonomy. The example here is marketing and market research. We're looking for concepts like millennials, market segments, Generation Z, baby boomers, or marketing ideas like retail. And in the bottom right-hand corner, we have meaning-loaded entities from business strategy issues, things like strategic partnerships. And again, in every case, we're looking for the concept, not for the text string. In the case of oncology, for example, there are many kinds of cancers and many terms that might indicate the presence of oncology. You might get oncology, the word. You might get cancer. You might get neoplasms, which are sort of a journal reference to cancer or tumors. You might get the word tumor. And the bottom right with strategic partnerships, how might a news story express a strategic partnership? Company A signed a deal with Company B. Company C announced a relationship with Company D, signed a contract. What are all the ways that you can express a strategic partnership? All of those because we're looking for the idea. We're not looking only for the text string. So with these smart taxonomies and the ability to tag the content, all kinds of useful business analyses can then be done very quickly. Why don't we take a look at one? So here's an example from the pharmaceutical industry. I'm going to pick on AstraZeneca because they're not a client of Northern Light. If there is anyone from AstraZeneca in the audience, please accept my apologies. So in 2014, AstraZeneca bought BMS's diabetes business for $4 billion and overnight became a top 5 competitor in that therapeutic area. The CEO of AstraZeneca had this to say on this deal. The deal reinforces AstraZeneca's long-term commitment to diabetes, a core strategic area for us, an important platform for returning AstraZeneca to growth. Well, let's see how that worked out. So if you want to know what a pharmaceutical company is working on, the easiest way to do it is to analyze the conference presentations being given by the employees of the pharma at life sciences conferences around the world. So last year, I took a look at, this is an example from last year, at the prior 2 years on the number of conference presentations that AstraZeneca employees had given. And we have a collection of conference presentation abstracts. And we were able to look for that AstraZeneca presented on 701 conferences in the prior 2 years. So if I wanted to analyze that to see how they were, what therapeutic areas they were focused on, and how is that diabetes strategy coming, I could read all 701 of them. That would be one approach. It would take me a long time. I'm not sure how to analyze it. Maybe I'd put tick marks on a piece of paper or something as I came across references to therapeutic areas. A better approach is to use our smart taxonomy. And luckily, we have one already prepared, which was therapeutic areas. And we can use that to analyze the presence of diabetes in the conference presentations being given by R&D personnel of AstraZeneca. And here's what we learned. If we look at the last 2 years and compare it to the prior 2 years, let's start with the prior 2 years. Endocrine disorders had 853 conference presentations, and kidney disease 109, and those are arguably all related to diabetes. So that's about 1,000 presentations. So that's 3 to 4 years ago. 1 to 2 years ago, that number had fallen to 57 and 30, roughly rounding off 100 presentations, a 90% decline in the number of presentations being given on diabetes. Meanwhile, oncology, which was only about 40% of what the diabetes presentations were, has risen to be several times higher, proportionally speaking, over that time period. So we can say that from an R&D viewpoint, AstraZeneca is not emphasizing diabetes at all, and it has been, and oncology has replaced it as a strategic focus. Now, this analysis of 700 conference presentations here and an even greater number there took about 2 minutes to do. And it took about 2 minutes to do because it was prepared with the content set was prepared, the relevant content set was prepared with the taxonomy already. And then the competitive intelligence analysis happens. Here's another example. Let's take a look at the social media posts for AstraZeneca. And in this case, we're looking at the last 90 days. In that time period, and the entities in this case, the taxonomy items are hashtags. Because companies use hashtags and they post what their energy is around, what they want to be thought about by the public. It's a real expression of corporate strategy, is what the posting strategy, the social media strategy of a company is. In this case, AstraZeneca made 79 Twitter posts using 53 hashtags in the prior 90 days. And their themes were oncology, COVID-19, and environmental issues. Not one reference to diabetes. No corporate energy around diabetes. Here's another analysis. This one's news. So we've looked at conference presentations and social media, and now we're looking at news. And again, we have our taxonomy on therapeutic areas. And you can see oncology totally dominates it until COVID-19 comes along, not surprisingly. And almost no reference to endocrine diseases or diabetes. Now, there is a little. It's the pink line. So if you look very closely, you see this pink smudge right down here along the 0 axis. That's the references to diabetes and news coverage of AstraZeneca. That means they're not announcing initiatives, new products, clinical trials, marketing initiatives, things like that. It's that pink smudge right here along the 0 line. So we can conclude from these 3 analyses, which cumulatively took me 5 minutes to do, that AstraZeneca has changed its business strategy fundamentally and has pretty much is abandoning the diabetes market. If you're a diabetes competitor of AstraZeneca, which some Northern Light clients are, this is good news, and it's something you might want to put in your CI brief. Now, I've been using only pharma examples. I do want to show you this works in any industry. In this case, the taxonomy items are company names. And we are looking for news coverage in the informed business press. So this is journalists who write substantive articles, not just sites that republish press. Limited the universe here to people who know what they're talking about in terms of the journalist. And we do a search on digital banking, and we say, who are the competitors? Because share of voice in news often leads eventually to share of market in that. And here is the list of competitors, the top 10 that come back that are players in digital banking. Do you notice anything? Doesn't it jump right out at you? Where are the banks? Where are the banks in digital banking? We have Amazon, Apple, Google, and Facebook as the leaders in terms of share of voice around digital banking. And finally, we hit a bank in position 5, and only 3 of the top 10 are banks. So if you're a competitive intelligence analyst at a bank, and Northern Light has clients who are, don't look at the other banks. Look at the tech giants. That Amazon wants to be your bank. Google wants to be your bank, and they're coming in with a completely different set of resources and business strategies, and an approach to the market is completely unique than other financial services companies. So this is the competitive intelligence insight. And how long did it take me to do this analysis? 30 seconds, because I had the news already prepared and I had the smart taxonomies in place. And so the analysis, including the graph, by the way, pops out in 30 seconds. just for fun, I also, looking at the data, I plotted the top 4 business players in digital banking. You see that 3 of them are going up in their coverage. So Google here is increasing its coverage year over year throughout the year. Apple is, and Amazon is. That means they're talking about new products. They're talking about marketing strategies. They're talking about loyalty strategies, promotions. So news coverage is going up. One is going down, and that's Facebook. And I don't know if that indicates a lack of consumer trust in Facebook compared to, say, Apple and Google and Amazon. But it is a distinctly different pattern, and there's probably a competitive insight in that, which if I were an analyst working on this, I might play around with and see if I can understand it some. But so here's an example of use of taxonomies and text analytics and graphing technology to extract insights pretty much instantly. From the news feed we're analyzing here is 30,000 news stories a day. So it's a tremendous amount of content, but once you have the taxonomy set up, tagging it is not a problem. Now, I'd like to transition to another idea, and that's the idea of smart summarization. So we've looked at smart taxonomies. Now let's talk about smart summarization. And let's say we ask the question of what is AstraZeneca working on in oncology R&D? If that's what they're emphasizing, can we get any insights into what kinds of drugs they might be developing and what kinds of research approaches they might take? If you are a competitor of AstraZeneca in the oncology market, and Northern Light has clients who are, this could be an important question. So we do our search again, but this time we search on the company AstraZeneca, and we also limit the search to the therapeutic area oncology. And this is an example here. I hope you can see this on your screens. Using the taxonomy as a search term, and it's going to pull in all those other terms that relate to oncology, and all the ideas and concepts will all be pulled into the search result. That's the nice thing about using a taxonomy as a search term. Not only the full text search, but also as a search term. So we get 250 conference presentations by AstraZeneca on oncology. What are our options to understand their research strategy? We could read the presentations. That would be one approach. And, you know, if you got a lot of free time available, you have at it. 250, how long is that going to take you? Not more than a few weeks, right? Very few people have a few weeks to devote to a task like that. So another approach is to have the machine read the documents and summarize it for you. And that's what you're seeing here with this display we call the Insights Report. And let me just expand this for you. These are the first few sentences of the Insights Report. So let's see what we can learn about AstraZeneca's oncology strategy, R&D strategy, from the presentations given by AstraZeneca employees, our funded researchers, at conference presentations. So we have here a sample of 277 progression-free survivors of breast cancer. And in this study, 99% of them had a particular condition, LOH. It's a medical term. I won't try to pronounce it for you. I'm from Alabama. I get a pass on pronunciation. LOH, and what that does is it disables the gene. And so 99% of these people had this disabling condition, and that suggests that disabling this gene might be a treatment strategy. Then there is a study of 391 randomized patients that received a drug and a placebo, and in 2 meaningful measurements that there were improvements that were clinically meaningful. This drug was really working, in other words, in this test. Down here we have a study of 8 mice and using a particular treatment strategy, and 6 of the 8 mice remained tumor-free at the end of the study, even though the researchers were trying to give them cancer. And mice, as you probably know, are the immune system of mice is a terrifically good model of the immune system of human beings. So this suggests a long-term strategy here. Now, all of this was generated by the machine. This is an automatically generated summary looking for important ideas. No human being involved in generating this. The machine read the 250 conference presentation abstracts and wrote the summaries. The actual report is 40 sentences long. This is the first 6. And a user can read down this and really grasp rapidly what the issues are and what the topics are and which ones are important and which ones aren't. So how does the machine do this? It does it by calculating a semantic graph. And a semantic graph looks for the relationships between ideas, and it measures the number and strength of the relationships. So in my little example here, imagine the green circle is an idea and a blue circle that only has one relationship. And the blue circles are ideas, are in this case sentences that express ideas, are sentences that have relationships with multiple other sentences or ideas. And there's one blue circle here that has the most relationships and has the most relationships with other important sentences. And the underlying principle of semantic graph analysis is the most important ideas have the most relationships with the most important ideas. And so the graph is calculated, and then we can figure out what the most important sentences are in all of those conference presentations, and we can pull them into the automated summary. And it's a very powerful way of summarizing content across multiple documents and multiple content sets. And I'll just point out that semantic graphs are a well-established technique. Every time you use Google and you look at a search result, you're looking at a semantic graph. Google does relevance ranking with a semantic graph of web page relationships. Also, if you're familiar with the academic world and journal impact factors, those are calculated as semantic graphs of citations. So the idea goes way back decades, works really well, and it can be used to summarize content like this from what would otherwise be an unmanageable body of competitive intelligence information. Now, again, I don't want you to think this only works in pharmaceuticals, so I'm giving you an example here of a news search. The topic is sustainability marketing to millennials, and you can see the search result on the left. On the right-hand side, you see the insights report that is generated from those news stories. Just to make it easy to read, we expanded it here. And let's see if we can learn anything about marketing to millennials and using sustainability. And we have an insight here. Millennials have taken the lead on the sustainable packaging conversation with the expectation that brand owners will do their part to deliver eco-friendly solutions. But the question has always remained about whether the cost of implementing these models that makes the products more sustainable is well sustainable for retailers, so it's going to cost more. And this key study here is a key insight. Nielsen found that 73% of the millennial generation was willing to pay more for sustainable goods. And it goes on, and we could read these sentences in the insights report, and we would understand the issues and the topics. We would understand, and we'd go back to that search result with real knowledge about what we should be looking for. You know, a very interesting question, by the way, is whether or not the insights reports reduce the consumption of content. Because one is tempted to just read that report and say, wow, I now understand it. I'm done. But what actually happens in the real world is that when you show people how relevant and important the insights are from a document, they become eager to read the whole document. And so we're seeing an increase in the consumption of documents as a result of this technology instead of a decrease. And we're actually able to measure it. There's a substantial increase in document consumption when you're able to incorporate importance into your search technology. And what is happening here is the machine is figuring out not only which documents are relevant to the query, which is traditional search, but they're also figuring out which ideas are important to the query. And that's the new opportunity that the smart machine learning technology that we have available to us today is able to bring to the table. Now, a third idea is smart content distribution. So we've talked about smart taxonomies and we've talked about smart summaries. Well, now let's talk about smart content and insight distribution. We can use machine learning technology to model each and every user. So we can build a semantic model, not of a document, but of a user. And by simply watching their behavior, interacting with the knowledge management system. And in this particular case, I was doing searches on sustainability marketing, and the machine was quietly watching in the background and went, David is interested in sustainability marketing. And so then it goes to the repository and it finds content that I should care about that I don't know about yet, that I haven't searched for. Maybe a day has gone by since I did my query or whatever. And the machine comes back and says, hey, we found some more stuff that you ought to take a look at. We think this will be interesting to you. We call it the recommended reading list. And you can see these are the specific recommendations the machine gave to me after I had done this query on sustainability marketing to millennials. It found additional content for me the next day and said, David, consider this. These recommendations are dramatically increasing the consumption of content because when you have a recommendation that's on point, again, users want to consume more of it and learn more about the topic. Now, how do we do this? How do we make these recommendations? It's a really hard problem. Recommendation engines have not really worked well in the enterprise setting, and there's a reason for that. Usually, recommendation engines drive off of people who are members of groups. If you're a CI analyst and you're working with a CI analyst in a department, and maybe you're Alice and there's John, and Alice is interested in something, and the recommendation engine knows that John is in the same department, it will look at what Alice does and recommend stuff to John. That obviously breaks down in the enterprise. It works great on Amazon when you're looking at shoes, but it doesn't work so great in the enterprise for competitive intelligence. Why not? It doesn't because John is working on completely different products than Alice is, different competitors. So you got to model the person first. And so we do this with a technique called latent semantic indexing. I was looking at documents that talked about, I'm user one in this case, that talked about millennials and sustainability. And the machine is able to model that and say, okay, David is a person who cares about both of those. New document comes into the repository that talks about them both. Another document comes into the repository that only talks about one of the topics really and not so much the other. And so the machine knows that this document is relevant to me and that this one isn't. And that's how we do it. We model every document, and we model every user, and then putting them together actually becomes trivially simple once you've done that. Now, in the real world, we don't use single words. We use topics. And so they're much broader than a single word. And we also use 800 dimensions and not 2. And so the recommendations are spot on. We nail it. And that, again, leads to much more consumption of insightful competitive intelligence information. Now, you've seen taxonomies, you've seen automatic summarization, and you've seen recommendations on what does it work for. Well, it works for all textual document formats. We've done it on Word, PowerPoint, PDFs, HTML, and XML. Works really well, excellently well on competitive intelligence, also in primary market research, syndicated market research, business and technology news, technical journals and articles. Boy, does it work well on those. The techniques work better as the content itself gets more specifically about something. And also conference presentations. The technical journals and conference presentations are really about something. So the technology works terrifically well, but really up and down this whole list. So in summarization, I would like to suggest that we're approaching the end of search. We're approaching the end of the era when users will no longer search for information, or we are approaching the era when users will no longer search for information in the traditional way. They will expect the machine to find what they need on its own and bring it to them. To do this, search must evolve to have an in-depth understanding of the search material and the ways of knowing in the user's domain. So you can't just throw a generic search solution at a generic content set and have this work. The content has got to be about the topic. It's got to be the right content that will have the insights that you're looking for. And the search technology from especially the taxonomy viewpoint needs to really be based on this in-depth understanding of the material and the ways of knowing. So to accomplish the above, you have to take advantage of smart taxonomies to deeply tag the content with context-specific and meaning-loaded entities. Use smart summarization of the important ideas in a document across documents and across sources, and use smart distribution of insights powered by learning what each user cares about, and then find the relevant material without being asked. We actually call that, we have a name for that, by the way. We say instead of searching for the material comes and finds you. And my last comment will be the impact of these analytics and machine learning trends on the socialization and utilization of competitive intelligence in your company will be profound, and they will change everything you're doing in your competitive intelligence knowledge management system. So with that, thank you. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them at this time.
So I'm just watching the chat here to see if there's any questions coming in. I actually wanted to go back to the idea of smart taxonomies and what makes them smart. So you talked about the industry specificity of the terms, of the concepts. Are there specific sources or places where you go to source or build and maybe refine these taxonomies in your work with clients?
Well, we find that librarians build really excellent taxonomies. They build better taxonomies than the automatic taxonomy generators that are out there. And so what we use are research librarians to do the taxonomy work. If you give them a topic, they'll come back with a great taxonomy. And what's really, the machine generated taxonomies always have the flaws in the content set are reflected in the taxonomy. And that means that if the content didn't cover a topic, it won't be in the taxonomy, whereas the librarian will say that we'll do research and we'll figure out what the taxonomies are. We always start by looking to see if we can find a relevant taxonomy. So if you're looking at therapeutic areas, Medline or MESH is a great place to start. But the problems then is making it smart. So if you go to MESH, you'll find that list words, and the purpose of MESH is to label nodes in a taxonomy, not to analyze content. So you have to map that to something that can be used to analyze content, because the terms aren't used the way in the taxonomy that they're used in the documents. And what makes it smart is you understand how it's used in the documents. Another thing that makes it smart is really context disambiguation. That is so key. So the word Google rarely refers to Google, the company. So we have ways to figure out, Google said, Google launched, Google announced, Google released, according to Google. So that's another important part, is context disambiguation. And again, librarians do a great job on that.
So when you talk about the modeling of the user, there's always this interesting debate between as you're collecting and bringing interests into the model, implicit interest definition versus explicit, right? So if you're trying to build a model based on a demographic cohort like millennials, what do they say about sustainability versus what do they actually interact with from a content perspective that would maybe correlate or match to what they're saying?
Yeah.
How do you kind of look at that?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah.
That's an excellent question. And because people do not express what they're interested in very well.
Right.
Their search terms are not good expressions of what they're actually interested in. They are underspecified. And so that's why we don't let the user tell us what they're interested in, because we know they can't, and they just don't. So what we actually do is then look at their behavior, and we infer what they are interested in by analyzing what they consume. So if a user consumes an article that mentions millennials, but really mentions some other topic more heavily, we know that. We know that what they actually consumed was the other topic. And that maybe they just got to that other topic by searching on millennials, but it was really, I don't know, maybe they were searching on millennials and sustainability marketing, but it was the sustainability marketing that they cared about, or some aspect of it. And so the machine can figure out what the topics are, and then look at the weight of material of what the user does, and that is what we model. We don't depend on the user's explicit actions. We simply observe the output that they consume, and that is a much more powerful way to do it.
Great, thank you. I don't see any other questions in the chat here. So for participants, or maybe people that couldn't make it today, finding out more about your firm or you, go to Northern Light. Is it northernlight.com? Where else can people find you?
It is. Well, northernlight.com is a great place to start. I think there's going to be a room, right,
Yep.
after this meeting. And I'm not, you might tell me how to get there, by the way, and anybody else who wants to find it can listen to you tell me how to do it. I'll be in there and we can take some additional questions.
Okay, it's the networking breakout room, and I think anybody that has attended Track D session presentations will be over there.
Okay, super duper.
All right.
Thanks everyone. This was fun. I enjoyed writing the presentation. I'm happy to send the slides to anybody who wants them. David at northernlight.com. Drop me a note. I'll send you the slides.